Time now for our guest star interview, and this week it's my good friend Mark Gatiss, actor, writer, raconteur. I've written writer again. He does do a lot of writing. A general genius and all-round very nice person. Here chatting to Big Finish writer, director, producer Scott Handcock. And just in case you didn't know, Mark's been recently playing The Master and Dracula for us. And his chat with Scott took place while they were recording the new adventures of Bernice Summerfield, while he was playing the Master, you see. And it's rather fascinating.
Hello, welcome to the special guesty bit of the Big Finish podcast. I am Scott Handcock, a producer and director, and I'm joined this morning by the lovely...
Oh, I've told you I refuse to do this. Hello. Mark Gatiss, hello.
How are you?
I'm good, yes. I just remembered that when I did The Master first for Doctor Who Unbound, I wanted to, for my introduction, I wanted to say, I am the Master and I imagine you will obey me. And Gary Russell wouldn't let me do it.
Gary Russell not allowing someone to do something they want?
Incredible.
It's amazing. We should probably say we're back in studio recording a new series of Bernice Summerfield, hence you being back as the Master.
Yes. Well, you just did say that. That was quick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Alternative Masters are like 38 buses. You wait 12 years for one and then suddenly there's two in a row.
But are you enjoying playing the character again?
Yes, very much. It's a treat, isn't it? Of course it is. It's a treat to play, not just an iconic character from one's youth, but also just to have a bit of fun. Have a bit of fun with it with David Warner. And I remember really enjoying the first one, Sympathy for the Devil, wasn't it? And that I love the idea of those alternative doctors. And David would have been a brilliant doctor, and now he is a brilliant doctor. So it's nice that these things can all come true.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a reunion with Bernice Summerfield when you were around, obviously, for the very beginning of Big Finish, before they even got the Doctor Who licence.
Yes, gosh. 1913, I think it was. We recorded it on a phonograph, but the cylinders have been wiped tragically by the BBC. Yes. That was with Nick Courtney, wasn't it? I think I was a Grell?
I think you were Grand Vizier, and you were probably...
that's right. It was the Panto one, wasn't it? That's right. I remember that. Yeah, gosh, that's about all I do remember. That was such a long time ago.
But that's it. When that first started, almost 20 years ago now, did you ever think it would still be... I mean, did you ever imagine that they get Doctor Who and, it would spiral into this mad little cottage industry?
No, I mean, how could you... I mean, the thing... My vivid memory of those times is of course, that it was the interregnum, the dark time, the time of chaos. But of course, no one knew there was going to be anything on the other side of it. It was, as far as we knew, that was it. So it was just wonderful to meet all those people that we'd grown up watching and being such fans of, and to sort of just keep things going. I think I remember very well the being summoned along with lots of other people to someone's house. Whose house was it? Possibly Gary's. Where the announcement was made that they'd got the Doctor Who licence. And Steve Moffat tells this story now because once it was clear that it was only for past Doctors and not for the eighth Doctor, as it would be, Steve walked out. I remember that very well. He's very embarrassed about that now because he wanted to write new Doctor Who, whereas I was quite happy to write old Doctor Who and have continued in that vein ever since. Yes, I remember that extremely. I also remember distributing transmission cards for the League of Gentlemen, which was about to start, which means it must have been very late 98 or early 99, yeah. Gosh, there we are. And of course it was just a thrill which persists. There's still the idea of being able to write into your TARDIS and write it for those people. And now so many great doctors are now doing it, and people. As you say, it's become this. It's not just a cottage industry, though. It's an incredibly successful part of the whole. I think there's something rather wonderful about the way that it's continued. Not just filling in the gaps, but doing whole sort of parallel histories of it, and also, when Paul McGann came back briefly to TV and insisted on naming his Big Finish companions and making them canonical, I was rather moved by that. I thought it was sort of a little gesture to the fact that it has sort of, kept things going all those years, and then in tandem with the new series has burned a separate flame.
Mr. Briggs as well, who normally runs the podcast, has 3 little questions he likes to ask all guests, which I'll run through now.
Is it like Mr. and Mrs.?
Yeah, you've got to get the same answer as Nick.
When do you go to bed?
The first one he likes to ask is how we met. I don't know whether that means, as he's not here, how we met, or how you and he met.
Or how the not we met. How did I meet? Well, if it's Nick, my God, I have absolutely no idea. I think I've always known Nick Briggs. Was it Voltaire said, if God did not exist, it would be necessary for man to invent it? Perhaps that's how I feel about Nick Briggs. I really don't remember. I mean, it goes forever back. I could make something up. We met in a police lineup after the Hatton Garden job in 1983. Let's go with that.
There we go. If any listeners know the real story, please write in on the back of a postcard.
I haven't a clue. I tell you what, I do remember very well. One of my fondest memories of Nick is that there was around the late 90s, there was God, I sound old. There was we got sort of rumours of there being a possible Doctor Who script banging around, which eventually became the TV movie. And there was this terrible dark rumour that the TARDIS was going to talk. And Nick and I had this running gag, which we still occasionally text each other, when the Doctor would say, "Oh, shut up, the TARDIS." It was the fact it was called the TARDIS all the time. Not TARDIS. Shut up, the TARDIS.
It's that thing I remember, the late 90s, because it was American, everyone kept going, "Oh, there's going to be a rapping TARDIS." That was the other thing.
I never got that far.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
What, he likes to say, tickles your molecules at the moment in terms of Big Finish?
Well, I've just listened to a rather marvellous adaptation of Dracula, which I thought was terribly good.
I can't argue.
Yes, that's
astonishing
been my
production
favourite
values
recently.
That was a lot of fun, though. For listeners who don't know, you played our Count.
Yes, careful.
And what a Count.
Yes, well, I couldn't say no, could I? I've always wanted to play Dracula. We had some old red curtains. I wish they'd been black with a red lining, but you work with what you got. And we had some old red curtains I used to tie around with a little clasp and pretend to be Christopher Lee, and to particularly his death scene from Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, where he's impaled on a giant crucifix. I used to enjoy that. Everyone has a hobby, right?
I'm trying to think what else we've done. We did Nightshade, of course, which was the adaptation of your first.
Yes, that was thrilling. I can remember when I signed my contract with Virgin Books, there was a thing about TV or radio adaptation or whatever, and I remember thinking, well, that's never going to happen. And obviously that was donkey's years before the show came back, but also just the idea. I was really very touched by you wanting to do it, and it came out extra. That's the other thing I've recently listened to. I thought that was wonderful, with John Castle, always one of my favourite actors.
Oh, such a charming actor, yeah,
as Professor Nightshade. So it was strange. I mean, it was odd to, of course, Kyle Sikora, who did the adaptation, having to sort of really pare it down to almost the bare minimum, because there was obviously the point of having the book was that you could do so much more. But I thought it turned out very well. I was rather chuffed with it.
Oh, good. And brilliantly produced by James Goss, bless him.
Indeed. Where is she now? So are there any plans to do the Roundheads and the Last of the Gadarene?
I think they're BBC books, aren't they, rather than Virgin?
Is that not allowed?
I have no idea, but I think that's the distinction.
Oh, there's another one. I did another one for Virgin, but I didn't like that one.
St. Anthony's Fire.
Didn't like that book.
Well, we'll have to get you to write something new.
Well, yes. Well, I haven't. The last Big Finish I wrote was in 2000.
Is that Invaders from Mars?
Invaders from Mars. That's 17 years ago. That's incredible, isn't it?
That's terrifying.
I do have. I have an unmade David Tennant script, which was going to be David's second season 3. Is that right? Season 4.
Was this the Suicide?
The Suicide exhibition, yeah. That's there. I read it the other day. It's rather good. But and of course, David and Catherine have come back, haven't they? To do, but those are all original stories, not Neely stories. So,
but Big Finish have done Lost Stories before,
they have.
So there's
it's there,
plenty of scope.
It's there.
Nick Briggs, you'll be listening to this as you edit the podcast, so we've mentioned that one. And we've talked about how you worked with a lot of past Doctors and you've played the Master and stuff like that. You've also mentioned earlier that you effectively played 3 Doctors when Anthony Head came in to record the Excellus trilogy.
That's right, yes. I was asked to go down to Bristol. This is also about 17 years ago, it must be, isn't it? Anthony Head could only do 1 day or 2 days or something, and I was asked to play the 5th, 6th and 7th Doctors opposite him so that he had someone to work against. And my God, he worked against me. No, it was charming. I remember having a really good laugh. He was a very nice man. It was a really funny idea to sort of do impersonations of these Doctors. But
you know what I'm going to ask?
No, I can't do them anymore. I studied. I did a lot of studying for that. But maybe another time.
And I think recently as well, on a similar note, you did one of the BBC audiobooks for was it Planet of the Daleks?
Yes. I'd love that. I mean, it's a funny thing. It was always my favourite Target book, although I didn't actually have the Target book, oddly enough. I had it in the Marks and Spencer's Dalek Omnibus, which had Genesis and Planet of the Daleks. But I was obsessed, and every time I was off school, which was a lot, I used to read it over and over and over. I knew that book backwards. And Joe Alone, Weber's Sacrifice. I loved it. It's one of my favourite Pertwees. So I had to do the audiobook of that. And then they asked me to do The Web of Fear, which I would have, of course, loved to have done. But the extraordinary thing was, it was coming back because they'd found it. And I hadn't read, I knew nothing of the story for so long. I thought, I can't do the audiobook because it'll spoil watching it because then I'll be too familiar with the story. So I actually said no. Is that crazy? No. But I am very willing to do some more. I'd love to. I had a great time.
And yeah, I'm aware lunch is looming and James is working on it. But the last question Nick likes me to ask people is, what is agitating your molecules generally? What are you enjoying either reading or watching? Or
there's too many great things. That's the trouble. The Tyranny of Choice, brilliant things. I'm watching Orphan Black, which I'm enjoying very much, and because of course it's just about to finish, that means it's the perfect time for me to start. I always do that. Very excited about the new Twin Peaks. What's that going to be like? Dirk Gently.
With the lovely Sam
Barnett, which I'm enjoying very much. Obviously, RuPaul's Drag Race is the biggest thing in my life. I could recommend a wonderful new horror film called Under the Shadow, which I was on a BAFTA jury for, and it's absolutely brilliant British-Iranian ghost story. It's fantastic. And that's been my favourite film in recent times, and I'm reading a book called A Delicate Balance, which I'm halfway through. It's taking me too long because I'm doing other things, and because I'm talking to you, I could be reading that book now.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
As dear Graham Crowden, with whom I did Nebulous years ago, used to say, his catchphrase, he'd always say, "How are you, Graham?" And he'd say, "Hanging on, dear boy, hanging on."
That seems like a fairly good point to end this little interview.
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
For a lovely day.